As we start to break down the chuck into various subprimals from the chuck, one of the major ones that would come off the outside of the shoulder is the shoulder clod. And so that's what we have here is a shoulder clod. And from this side you can't see a lot of differences, but just so you understand, this is the outside of the animal, kind of the outside of the shoulder portion. I'll turn it over. We can look at several muscles. One of the interesting things about a shoulder clod, we've always talked more about the muscles that are involved in locomotion, movement of the animal, actually being somewhat tougher. That still holds true to a point, but we found some muscles within some cuts, some subprimals like this shoulder clod, where actually there's some very tender portions of this that could be used for a lot of different applications. One of the ones that used to just be cut in half and never really utilized much is a little muscle that runs right here. It actually would have set close to the blade bone, or the shoulder blade. It's called the teres major. It's a very tender muscle that is shaped a lot like a small tenderloin in shape, and can be used for some kebabs. It could be used and braised and or grilled alone and used. A lot of different applications for that. The muscle fibers all run one way. If we turn around and look at the muscle that was on top of the shoulder blade, which happens to be this muscle right here, is the infraspinatus, or the top blade muscle. And it is a kind of an interesting muscle. Right down through the center of it is a heavy layer of connective tissue that if you cut across and make steaks, stays right in the middle and won't cook up all together, although it kind of will on one end. If we though, instead of doing that, take the muscle and almost fillet it out, leaving the muscle tissue out of the center, or taking the muscle tissue out of the center, we can cut steaks across this that we'd use, and most of the time those are referred to as flat iron steaks. So flat iron if we take out the fillets of that, top blade if we cut across. So that's just a little difference in terminology. The remaining portion of this shoulder clod can be used for several things. Some of it would just come out as either stew meat or something like that. The major portion, the triceps brachii, which is this muscle right here, could be used for a roasting application, could actually be staked, but they're not going to be as tender as the top blade. I didn't mention, but the top blade actually, in muscle tissue tenderness, is second only to tenderloin in muscle tissue tenderness. So it is extremely tender, where these others would be kind of medium in tenderness. Some of the other muscles or other subprimals out of the chuck, one of the other major ones would be the chuck roll. And that really is the extension of the ribeye. Remember, we cut between the 5th and 6th rib, so you can see the mirror image of the chuck end of the ribeye right here. Still has the same muscles, and a lot of times this would be referred to as a chuck eye. Okay, as we look, a lot of times this cut, and it would move up through here to the neck. A lot of times this, at this point in time, is either cut into steaks or cut thick for roasts. Now, there are some applications going on right now where we're taking this apart by taking this chuck eye out of the center, taking a couple of other peripheral muscles off, leaving a center portion or a flat portion of this that would be utilized either for like a brisket, could be used to cut across the grain to make some steak cuts, or different applications like that. So this is going to eventually will be kind of one of those that may be left behind as we seam out these muscles further and go a little further down to single muscle cuts. We talk about single muscles. Another portion of that chuck roll was this muscle that's the supraspinatus muscle. So the infraspinatus was that top blade that's very, very tender. On just the other side of the ridge of the scapula, we had this muscle. A lot of times it's referred to as a mock tender. And the reason it's called a mock tender is this muscle has some tenderness issues and tenderness challenges. A lot of times it's fairly tough. If, however, we take them out like this, when we know they have some tenderness challenges, we have more opportunity to create a product with these, like a pre-cooked, slow-roasted pot roast, that will help with tenderness issues from this cut.